It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you may be. Welcome to Dodger Stadium, Game 1 of 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Dodger magic number is 10. One reason is they're playing very well. They've now won 17 of the last 22. Giants are playing well. They've won 8 of 11. They're playing the Diamondbacks, who are not playing well. They've lost 16 of 23. And on the mound for the Giants tonight, it will be Madison Bumgarner. As far as the Dodgers are concerned, the Pirates are a very hungry club. They lost 3 out of 4 to Chicago, and the Cubs won this afternoon, beating St. Louis. So for the moment, the Cubs are a game and a half back of Pittsburgh in the battle for a wild card berth. As far as the Dodgers are concerned, playing well, especially at home. Should the Dodgers win tonight, they will have won 50 games at home. They'd be 50-22 so far for the year. For Pittsburgh, well, they swept the Dodgers 3 in Pennsylvania, and tonight they'll have the young left-hander Jeff Locke. Locke with a record of 8-10, no record against the Dodgers, 1-2 in his career. On the mound for the Dodgers, Zach Greinke, a tremendous record, 17-3, no record against Pittsburgh this year, 5-3 lifetime. But a word of caution: Zach's earned run average is 1.6. However, his ERA against Pittsburgh, 5.3. So the prospects of a good ball game and a great series. Kershaw tomorrow night, and we'll have the ball game and a whole lot more coming up right after this. Maybe. We're at Dodger Stadium looking forward certainly to Game 1 of the 3-game series between the Dodgers and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates beat the Dodgers 3 straight back in Pennsylvania, and the Dodgers now trying to return the favor tonight. And they start off with a strong hand to do the dealing, and despite the fact you have such solid ball players for Pittsburgh, a ball club that has done exceptionally well against other divisions led by Andrew McCutchen. For Clint Hurdle, the manager of the Pirates, fighting for a wild card berth. And we'll see the names on Clint's card, and they come up this way. Leading off, Gregory Polanco in right field. In left field, Starling Marte. And in center, Andrew McCutchen. That's a very, very hard-hitting outfield. Then you have Aramis Ramirez at third. Neil Walker at second. Pedro Alvarez at first. Jordy Mercer, the shortstop, having to play for the seriously injured Gong, who had a broken leg yesterday in a ball game against the Cubs. So Jordy Mercer at short, Chris Stewart the catcher, and Jeff Locke on the mound, another left-hander. For the Dodgers, Zach Greinke, putting up one of the most dominant seasons by a National League pitcher in the so-called live ball era. Greinke, 17-3 with an earned run average of 1.6. It reminds you of going back to 1995 and looking at Greg Maddux, who was 19-2 and an earned run average of 1.63. And then if you want to go back 30 years to the fireballing Dwight Gooden, Doc was 24-4, and his earned run average was 1.5. Can't get much tougher than that. So we'll see about Greinke now, with Gregory Polanco to start it off. Up north, Ruby De La Rosa will be pitching for Arizona. The Diamondbacks have lost 16 of 23, and Madison Bumgarner for the Giants, who've won 8 of 11. Greinke ready and delivers. First pitch fouled away, and the count 0-1. Gregory Polanco played in the minor leagues. Almost all of them do that. But it's one of the more memorable plays in minor league history. In fact, you just can't believe that it happened. 0-1 the count. Greinke ready and delivers. Big left-hand hitter takes high, 1-1. Polanco had a ball hit over his head. He raced to the wall. The ball bounced on the top of the wall and went out. And Polanco whirled and fired the ball back to the infield. Yeah, that's right. There's a foul ball off to the right. I'll say it again. Polanco had a ball hit over his head. He races all the way to the center field wall. The ball hits the top of the wall and goes out for an apparent home run. Only Polanco turns and fires a ball back to the infield. And everyone in the ballpark was totally confused. Here's the 1-2 pitch on the way. Swung on, popped up. It'll be Seager backing out on the grass a foot or two to make the catch. What happened was, as Polanco raced to the wall, there were kids on the other side of the wall playing a game. And just as it looked like the ball hit the top of the wall, it was hit by the kids behind the wall, just as he caught the ball. And no one had any idea. First they thought, wait a minute, he substituted a ball. But no, it was a 1 in a million. And I'm sure that story will be told wherever Gregory Polanco goes. Meanwhile, he pops to short. Here's Starling Marte with 16 home runs. Big right-hand batter. Checks on the pitch on a corner for a strike. And the count 0-1. When you look at the outfield for Pittsburgh, Marte has 16 home runs. McCutchen is 22. That's 38 right there. The pitch swung on and missed. And with 38, you also look at Gregory Polanco. Polanco had 9. So that's 47 home runs just for the outfield with Pittsburgh. Strike 2 pitch swung on, fouled away, and the count remains 0-2. The Pirates are a very good ball club. They've won 87 games. They have been particularly successful. Clint Hurdle going up against the Western Division. And, of course, remember, Clint at one time managed in Colorado. They are 21-5 against the West. Strike 2 pitch is swung on, nubbed in fair ground. Picked up by Ellis, throws to first, and Marte is out. 2-3 if you're scoring. Let's take a look at the Dodgers defensively, although Marte acts like he should not have been called out. You have Gonzalez and Utley, Seager and Turner. The outfield, Ruggiana, Peterson and Heisey. Ellis behind the plate, and Greinke on the mound. 2 down first inning, and here is young and always forever young in Pittsburgh, Andrew McCutchen. What a player. 93 RBIs, 22 home runs, hitting .298, takes a strike, and the count 0-1. They tell an interesting story. Psychologically, you can see what it would do to Andrew McCutchen when he was a little toddler, 3-4 years old. Like so many fathers, he would take the little boy out in the backyard. There's a one-hopper down the left field line going in the corner, and McCutchen is on his way for an easy double. So with 2 down, McCutchen doubles. That would be his 34th double, and that'll bring up Aramis Ramirez. Anyway, his father would take him out in the backyard, and he would have fishing corks and wiffle balls so that they would wobble, and the kid would have trouble with a broom handle to hit the ball. But the big thing, the father drew a little square in the ground and said, "Son, that's home plate. Home plate is yours. Make believe it is your house. Living in that house is your father, your mother, your younger sister. Anything and everything you love is in that house. Any ball that comes is an intruder trying to get into that house and spoil it, wreck it." That's been the theme, protect the house. And here McCutchen goes up and promptly doubles with that theory that's been in his mind since about 4 years old. The father didn't say just try and meet the ball. He said attack the intruder, protect the house. So McCutchen's been doing it. A 2-out double to left, and Aramis Ramirez now trying to pick him up. We're just starting. Pull up a chair and see what develops. 1 ball and no strikes. Ramirez swings and doesn't get it. With the Pirates, since coming over, hitting .253, 5 home runs, 28 RBIs. For the year, Ramirez, who's always had sock, he has 16 home runs. Greinke looks back at McCutchen, now to the plate, swung on, fouled away. Aramis Ramirez has been a terrific producer, especially in his years when he first came to the Pirates. Then he went to the Cubs, and that's where he put up the big numbers. From the Cubs, he went to the Brewers, and from the Brewers this year to the Pirates. So he had 11 home runs, and he's had 5 with Pittsburgh. They add up to the 16. First inning, no score, and the 1-2 pitch on the way is taken off the plate. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Pittsburgh Pirates, you start back in 2010. They only won 57 games. The next year, 72. 2012, they won 79 games. And then in 2013, 94. And that's when they really were coming of age. 2-2 pitch is taken low, pushed out in front of the plate. The Pirates went 20 years without having a winning record. They went from 1993 to 2012. They were really excited about their ball club, and now the injury to Young Kong, the boy from Korea. Young had a broken leg in Chicago, and by the way, he was hitting about 380 in the month of July to get his average up to 287. They're really going to miss him. 3-2 the count to Aramis Ramirez. Greinke at the belt, looks back at McCutchen, staring at him. Now to the plate, jammed him with a fastball, foul back, and the count remains 3-2. When the Pirates come to town and you start talking about baseball and Pittsburgh and Dodger Stadium, well, you may remember the best hitter to ever come through here, the one who did the most damage, I guess, the top all-time hitter, the Pirates' Roberto Clemente. Clemente hit .377 here at Dodger Stadium. 3-2, Ramirez takes low. So a double by McCutchen with 2 out. to walk to Ramirez, and that will bring up Neil Walker.
Second baseman number 18, Neil Walker.
Neil Walker, among other things, has 2 home runs in the past against Greinke. Neil has 13 home runs, 61 RBIs, and he's really been on a tear of late, hitting .319 in the month. So Walker checking in, trying to pick somebody up here. 2-on-2 out, first inning, and no score. Walker, left-hand batter. Greinke works a pitch a little low. 1 ball and no strikes. Walker has 8 sacks flies. 4 for 21 in the past against Greinke, and 2 of them home runs. We mentioned it at the start of the game. Greinke has had trouble against the Bucks. The 1-0 pitch is swung on and pulled foul, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. His earned run average 1.6, incredible. However, earned run average against Pittsburgh 5.3. 1 ball, 1 strike. In case you joined us a little late, Polanco popped up. Marte topped one out in front of the plate. Then McCutchen doubled. Ramirez walked, and a 1 ball, 1 strike count coming up. Greinke delivers. That's fought off, fouled away off to the left. 1-2 the count to Neil Walker. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, they started off the year like one of those, oh well, here we go again. They were 17-20, and then they turned around. They were 36-15 going into the All-Star game. Slow after, they went 8-9, and now 26-15, but they're only split even 8-8 in September. So we'll see what kind of a club they have this weekend. Tomorrow night, Clayton Kershaw and Nelson Liriano, and then Sunday, Mike Bolsinger and Greg Cole. 1-2 the count. Greinke at the belt. Another look at the runners. The pitch at the plate. A little chopper slowly. Charging is Utley. Shovels and gets him. So Neil Walker, a little ground ball. No runs. 1 hit. 2 left. It's time for Jeff Locke to go to work. And at the end of half an inning, no score. We go to the bottom of the first inning with a chance to take a look at Don Mattingly's lineup, and it reads as follows. Justin Ruggiano in left field, Chase Utley at second, Justin Turner at third, Adrian Gonzalez hits cleanup at first, A.J. Ellis behind the plate, Corey Seager at short, Chris Heisey in right field, Jock Peterson batting eighth in center, and the pitcher Zach Greinke. On the mound for the Bucks, Jeff Locke. He's out of New Hampshire, North Conway, in fact, originally a second-round pick by the Braves. 6'1", 185. You know how his home in New Hampshire, that area, is described? Cradled between peaks of the White Mountains in northern New Hampshire, Mount Washington Valley is like a painting lifted from the walls of an art museum. And the first pitch to Ruggiano, missing for ball one. Those born here rarely leave. Those who visit never want to. The left-hander's next pitch swung on, ground ball through the hole into left field for a base hit. So Justin Ruggiano leads off with a single to left, and that'll bring up Chase Utley. Ruggiano doing a terrific job since putting on the blue. The Justin leading the way. Interesting note for Jeff Locke, and I'm sure he's not happy about it. Against the Western Division, Jeff Locke's record, no wins and 2 losses, and an earned run average of 12. All of the other starters against the Western Division, 11 and 2, and an earned run average of 2.7. So Locke has a very tough act to follow whenever he's facing a National League Western team. So here's Utley, 7 home runs total, 35 runs batted in, takes the strike, and the count 0-1. Howie Kendrick is about ready to come back and start. That's what Don Mattingly said. They're going to be very careful with Howie, but he's about ready. The strike one pitch on the way to Utley. Big chopper foul that chases Davey Lopes out of the box. Quoting Don Mattingly, we wanted to get Howie back in there, but he won't play every day right now. We want to be careful. No restrictions. We want to make sure he's healthy and not run him into the ground. So Kendrick will be watched carefully, but he will be coming back, having been activated today. Ruggiano at first. The left-hander Locke looks over. Now to the plate. Inside, hits Utley. And just like that, the Dodgers are in business. So for Jeff Locke, having a lot of trouble against Western Division teams. Here are the gloves: Alvarez and Walker, Mercer and Ramirez, Marte, McCutchen and Polanco, Stewart the catcher, and Locke on the mound. Locke is 27. He'll be 28 in November. So here is Justin Turner, one of the truly good fastball hitters in the game, hitting .289, but the last 9 games hitting over .300. 2 on, nobody out. First inning, no score. Locke straightens up out of his stretch position, looks at the runners, comes to Turner, and works it low. Ball 1, 1-0. Locke, among other things, coming in with a record of 8-10. He's had 10 no decisions. He's also been saved by the offense 6 times from a loss. The 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on and missed. Changeup, 1-1. He gets a lot of ground balls. He's certainly looking for a ground ball right now. 1-1 the count. He has pitched better with Chris Stewart as his catcher as opposed to Francisco Cervelli, though working together trying to get rid of a very tough hitter in Justin Turner. The 1-1 pitch on the way. The left-hander deals and misses low and inside. 2 balls and 1 strike. Center Conway, New Hampshire. He was born in North Conway, and that's the hometown of several pretty famous pitchers. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way. Lock set, comes to his hitter, fouled away. Who are some of the famous pitchers who come out of New Hampshire? Well, Mike Flanagan, remember, Baltimore, Bob Tewksbury, Chris Carpenter, and Brian Wilson, all from New Hampshire. By the way, Chase Utley, taking one in the back, has now been hit 178 times. That's the most for any active player. Alex Rodriguez nailed 175. The next pitch is on the inside corner. Fastball, and probably the last pitch that Turner expected. So Turner strikes out looking at a fastball, And to him, that's usually dessert. I guess he just thought it missed the zone, but it caught the zone. The plate umpire, by the way, is Jordan Baker, handed the responsibility of keeping order. He's out of Oklahoma, appointed to the major leagues last year. So 2 on, 1 out, and here's Adrian Gonzalez. Gonzalez hitting .280, 27 home runs, 84 runs batted in. There go the runners. Double steal. Bad throw into left field. Ruggiano gets up and scores. Going to third is Utley, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. Bad throw by Chris Stewart. There was no chance for Ramirez to handle it. So the double steal and a throwing error charge to Stewart. And just like that, the Dodgers are out in front. So Ruggiano steals third. Utley steals second. The error brings Ruggiano home, brings Utley to third. And it's as if of late the Dodgers have discovered the elixir of a running game, much to the displeasure of Clint Hurdle. 1-0 Dodgers. The infield has to play halfway. Adrian looks at a breaking ball that picks up the outside corner, and a 1-ball, 1-strike count. So the Dodgers on the board, doing it the old-fashioned way, a double steal. The 1-1 pitch on the way, fouled away, 1-2. I don't know why suddenly I had the picture of Lou Johnson stealing third, Chris Krug throwing the ball into left field. Dodgers take a 1-0 lead in the 5th inning, and Sandy Koufax pitches a perfect game. It all comes to rush on one poor throw by Chris Stewart. 1-2 the count. The infield halfway with Gonzalez. Now the 1-2 pitch inside under the hands. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. So in the inning, Ruggiano single allowed. Utley hit by a pitch. Turner strikes out. Dodgers pull off the double play, the double steal, and the throw by Stewart into left field gives them a run. 2-2 pitch on the way. Slow breaking ball up. Tried to drop that in like a Kershaw curve. Couldn't quite do it. 3-2 with Gonzalez. A.J. Ellis on deck. 1-0 Dodgers, first inning. Beautiful evening. 81 degrees. 3-2 pitch ready, and here comes Locke, and it's pulled on the ground. Nice pick at first. On the bag is Alvarez for the out. Nowhere for Utley to go but to watch. So Gonzalez can't pick him up on the ground ball, and it'll bring up A.J. Ellis. A.J. Ellis hitting .284 since July 1st. Once he got a chance to play a little more, remember it was in July in Philadelphia when Yasmani Grandal hurt his left shoulder. Locke ready, works low and inside, almost hit him. 1 ball and no strikes. Corey Seager on deck. Jeff Locke, 6'1", 185. Seager waiting, and here's the 1-0 pitch to A.J. Locke ready and comes back inside again. Ball 2. 2-0. With a runner at third, we always look it up, and Locke has 5 wild pitches. 1-0 Dodgers, first inning, 2 out. The 2-0 pitch on the way to A.J. Ellis is taken low and away. Ball 3. I don't think he's really pitching around Ellis. Oh yes, Seager is a left-handed batter, but if Jeff's been looking at the numbers, he's not trying to duck Ellis. The 3-0 pitch on the way. Left-handed delivers and gets it in there for a strike, and they count 3-1. Pirates pick up a run because of the weakness of their defense and give it to the Dodgers. The 3-1 pitch is taken for ball 4. So Ellis draws the walk. Holding at third is Utley. Clint Hurdle a little ticked off. And one thing Clint no longer does, when Clint Hurdle managed the Colorado Rockies, if you ever watch the games, especially in Colorado, right about now in this inning, Clint Hurdle would have a baseball in his hand and he would be bouncing it on the floor of the dugout. It brought memories of Captain Queeg and the King Mutiny with the little marbles, but it was just a reaction he had. And finally, as I understand it, the Rocky player said, "Hey, Clint, do us a favor. That's not helping us bouncing that ball. It gets everybody tight." So he has stopped doing it. All right, here is Seager with first and third, looks at the first pitch strike, and the count 0-1. Hard to believe he has 20 hits already. He's only had 47 at bats, hitting .350 against left-handers and .426 overall. 1-0 Dodgers first inning. Locke trying to get out of it, comes right back with a pitch swung on and missed, and the count 0-2. Corey Seager, what a break for the Dodgers. They lose Jimmy Rollins, and they bring up this young shortstop third baseman, and he has just been marvelous. (0-2) the count to young Corey. Locke very carefully, left foot on the rubber. His big pitch, a two-seam fastball. Then he has the curveball, slider, and a change. Back he comes and misses low with a change, and a count 1-2 strikes. Little bit of a herky-jerk delivery that helps him a little bit. Tough to pick up the ball if you're the hitter. 1-2 the count. Dodgers at first and third. They've scored a run. Pitch to Seager, a comebacker. Locke has it, turns, casually flips over to first, and that's the inning. So the throwing error charged to Chris Stewart gives the Dodgers a run, and at the end of an inning, Dodgers 1, Pirates nothing. .10 Dodgers and Pirates, and you can pick up your Clayton Kershaw pin, the final pin in the Cy Young Pin Collector Series presented by 76. For more information, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. So Greinke has a run to lean on. No surprise, the run comes home on an error by the Pirates. The Pirates have the most errors in the league, 114. So here's Pedro Alvarez to start it off. Takes off speed, 1 ball and no strikes. Alvarez, coming off the bench, has 5 pinch hit RBIs, and 20 of his home runs have been against right-hand pitching, 20 of 24. The next pitch swung on, fouled away, and a 1 ball, 1 strike count. Alvarez from Santo Domingo Played a lot of third base, moved him over to first base. Left-hand hitter that rings bells of, if you go way back, Richie Hebner with the Bucks in 1976. 1-1 pitch on the way, high, ball 2, 2-1. Can't forget Hebner once you met him. During the offseason, he was a grave digger in a cemetery. Well, where else would you be a grave digger? Nice going, Skull. 2 balls and 1 strike. Greinke ready and delivers off-speed curveball, whacked to right. Coming up for it and picking it off is Chris Heisey. That slow curveball was drilled, but Heisey made a nice play, and we have 1 out.
Shortstop, number 10, Jordy Mercer.
His name is Jordy Mercer. They probably in some ways forgot about him the way Gong was playing, but they need Mercer desperately now to put in a big job as Heisey puts that line drive away and Mercer checks in. Jordy hitting .239, and of course Gong was doing a heck of a lot better than that, but that's the nature of the game. Jordy's from Toluga, Oklahoma. Swings, doesn't get it. No balls and 2 strikes. He went to Oklahoma State. If Boyd Robinson doesn't know Toluga, no one does. He's looking it up. The strike 2 pitch is sprayed foul upstairs. It's 1-0 Dodgers. Top of the second inning, 1 out. Jordy stands 6'3", a 200-pounder, 29 years old. Drafted in the 3rd round by the Pirates back in 2008. Strike 2 pitch on the way, poked on the ground to the hole. Nice smothering slide by Utley to throw him out. So it's a big contrast. 114 errors made by the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Dodgers have made only 67. And you had a nice play by Heisey on the line drive and a very nice play by Utley to take care of Mercer. It is amazing, but I guess it has always been that way. People always talk about hitters, home runs, runs scored, outstanding pitching. You rarely have somebody say, boy, that's a terrific defensive team. First pitch on the corner for a strike to Chris Stewart. Well, the Dodgers are a very, very solid club, and we put the numbers up after we spoke, 114-67. And Howie Kendrick will be back soon, so the Dodgers can replace players if they struggle in the outfield. They always have Jock Peterson, though it is just one solid defensive team. Not to mention Jimmy Rollins, who's a spectator right now, but getting close to coming back. The pitch down and away. Well, no wonder. No wonder Boyd Robinson didn't know Toluga, Oklahoma. It's in the northwest part of the state. Population 299. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way. Ground ball up the middle. Base hit. So Greinke normally has trouble with Pittsburgh, and even though he's leading 1-0, he's having trouble tonight. I mean, he gave up the double to McCutchen and the walk to Ramirez. Got out of it in the first inning. Alvarez certainly wasn't fooled. Hit a bullet right at Heisey. And now after Mercer is robbed of a hit by Utley, Stewart gets a base hit. And the batter now, Jeff Locke. 1-0 Dodgers, top of the second. And Locke, left-hand batter as he pitches. Jeff has a look, and it's off the plate. 1 ball and no strikes. Jack waiting. Stewart at first with 2 out. The next pitch to Locke, that's off the plate. 2-0 the count. Locke trying to help his own cause. On deck, Gregory Polanco, who popped up. Two and that one is in for a strike. Greinke has already made 36 pitches, made 21 in the first inning. Nelson Liriano and Clayton Kershaw tomorrow night. Here's the 2-1 pitch to Locke. Swung on, high chopper right there to Utley. Routine play for the out. So a line drive caught, a ground ball taken away, then the base hit and an easy play. No runs, 1 hit, a man left at the end of an inning and a half. 1-0 Dodgers. And given the Dodgers a 1-0 lead as we go to the bottom of the second inning. Zach Greinke has now made 37 pitches in his 2 innings. Jeff Locke made 25 in the first inning. Chris Heisey, who handled that line drive off the bat of Alvarez, will start it off. Heisey, Peterson, and then Greinke. Dodgers' so-called magic number is 10. We'll keep an eye on the Giant game. Giants have won 8 of 11. Arizona having a lot of troubles. They've lost 16 of the last 23. So Mattingly watches. Heisey checks in. They load up the left side, and he pops it up on the right side. Coming a long way. First baseman Alvarez makes the catch. Neil Walker was trying to get there, and I don't think he would have made it. Walker way over on the left side of the infield. And a nice play by Pedro Alvarez. And Walker now going back to his position. There's the catch, and a nice one it is by Alvarez. And there's Walker just 2 strides away. So Heisey pops it up. 1 down. And Jock Peterson. Jock hitting .217. 25 home runs, 52 runs batted in. They load up the right side now. And Locke ready and delivers. Fastball strike. Diamondbacks and Giants, 3rd inning, no score. Madison Bumgarner is pitching that game for the Giants. The Mets, meanwhile, moving along in high gear. Remember the big battle between the Dodgers and the Mets. Home field advantage. Well, the Mets took care of the Yankees 5-1. They had 3 home runs. Pitch off the plate. Lucas Duda, Daniel Murphy, and Juan Uribe all homered. Uribe, would you believe it, as a pinch hitter with a man on. And we've mentioned it before. The 2-1 pitch is hit the other way into left field for the base hit. Up with it there is Marte, and holding is Jock Peterson. So Peterson making his coaches happy by staying in and going the other way for a line drive single. Now a good hitting pitcher coming up. fact, when you talk about good hitting pitchers in the league, Tyson Ross hitting .250, Madison Bumgarner hitting .235, then you have Zach Greinke hitting .210, and the Giants' Chris Heston .208. So two of the top hitting pitchers are Giants. So here is Greinke, one out, runner at first. Dodgers lead 1-0. Zach showing bunt. Locke looks, comes to the plate. The bunt is pushed foul, and the count 0-1. Ruggiano on deck. Greinke has a half a dozen sacrifices, so he's a good man to have up there. 1 run, 2 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 2 hits. A throwing error by catcher Chris Stewart allows the Dodgers the run. Strike 1 pitch to Greinke, again showing bunt, but the throw goes to first. Jeff Locke opening it up. Liriano tomorrow night, and Cole Sunday afternoon. Strike 1 pitch on the way. Again, Greinke shows bunt, gets out in front, gets the bunt down. Stewart picks it up, throws to Walker, and the sacrifice works. 7 sacks for Greinke. So Peterson at second base with 2 down, and that'll bring up Ruggiano, who singled in the hole on the left side in the first inning. He has worn out left-handers, definition of wear out, hitting .417. Justin, big right-hand batter, bends at the knees, slightly at the waist. Locke trying to get out of a jam. He's down 1-0. Peterson runs well at second base. And the first pitch grounded just foul outside of third. It was a changeup, and Ruggiano just a little out in front of it. The off-speed pitch, and he hit it right up along the chalk, and then it went foul about a foot or so outside the bag. So Locke with a runner at third, trying to keep it 1-0. Left-hander set, looks at second, now to the plate. Fastball misses inside. 1 ball and 1 strike. The Pirate pitchers throw a lot of wild pitches. A total of 62. Now the 1-1 pitch coming up, and that's a fastball low, and that runs the count. 2 balls and 1 strike. Cubs and Pirates battling for home field advantage in the wild card. Pirates lead for the moment by a 1.5 games. 2-1 pitch swung on and hammered, but foul. Oh, that left in a hurry all the way to the second level, and they count 2 balls and 2 strikes to Justin Ruggiano. Oh, he crushed that thing. Jeff Locke has allowed 14 home runs. He'll never come any closer and not give one up. All right, they hook up again. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Peterson at second. Left-hander Locke's breaking ball is whacked. A hopper into left field. They're going to send Peterson home. The throw is way up the line. Down to second base goes Ruggiano, and he's going to be tagged out by the shortstop Jordy Mercer. But Ruggiano does it again. A line drive single to left to cash in Peterson, and just like that, the Dodgers are out in front by 2. For the Dodgers, 3 hits producing the 2 plus the error, and at the end of 2-0 Dodgers. Dynamite against left-hand pitching. Drives in the run. The Dodgers take a 2-0 lead with Peterson scoring. And we go to the third inning. Top of the order, Polanco, Marte, and McCutchen. Greinke ready, makes his first pitch, and that's in there for a strike. And the count 0-1. Locke now has made 37 pitches. Greinke made 37 in his first 2 innings. So Locke in the dugout getting a little extra instruction. The next pitch, a big swing and a miss. And they count 0-2 to Gregory Polanco. No relation to Placido Polanco. Gregory from Santo Domingo. Signed by the Pirates in 2009. Takes in the dirt. He's a big fella. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He just turned 24 on the 14th of the month. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Leadoff man, not a lot of power. He takes high. 2-2 the count. But he's had good batting averages in the minor leagues. Hitting as high as 325, 312, 328. So that got him up here. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Greinke delivers, and it's lifted to left center. Very playable. Waiting for it is Jock Peterson, and just like that, 1 away. Pirates, we mentioned earlier, has an explosive outfield.
Number 6.
In fact, for Pittsburgh, their game-winning RBIs. Starlin Marte, who is coming up now, has 16 game winners. Andrew McCutchen 12. Gregory Polanco 9. In the game played in both leagues, Marte is second to Josh Donaldson. So the first pitch now to Starling, that's away. 1 ball and no strikes. 2-0 favor of the Dodgers. Marte, a very important lineup in the number 2 slot with McCutchen hitting after him. Marte in and out of the box. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. The next one swung on, ground ball to short, one-handed by Corey Seager to throw him out. Marte looking back as if to say, how'd they ever get me out? Well, they got him on a ground ball to short, and now here's Andrew McCutchen. McCutchen ripped a double in the first inning, protecting the house. Now batting .299. He is just one solid, terrific ball player. Andrew McCutchen. As usual, very tough in the clutch. Andrew is hitting .387 in the clutch. The 1-0 pitch banged to the left side of the bag. It's Utley over there to throw him out. So the Dodgers shifting on McCutchen. They take a base hit away from him. And for the first time tonight, the Pirates go 1-2-3. At the end of 2.5 innings, 2-0 Dodgers. Game started. Nice crowd on hand, and well, they should be here. Should be a great series. The Dodgers and the Pirates. Pirates have won 87 games. The Dodgers have won 84. The Dodgers against the Central Division are 1 game above 500. The Pirates against the West 21-5. And a broken bat, fly ball, and going out to get it is second baseman Jordy Mercer. So Utley has the bat broken, pops it up to the shortstop, and we have one down quickly here in the third. Justin Turner coming up, struck out looking at a fastball that got the inside corner. That's the inning where the Dodgers had a single, a hit batter, pulled off the double steal. Chris Stewart threw the ball into left field, and the Dodgers got a run. And then a couple of base hits and a good bunt. Single by Peterson, sacrificed by Greinke, and a base hit by Ruggiano, and the Dodgers lead 2-0. Now the pitch to Justin Turner, in for a strike, and the count 0-1. The strike one pitch on the way is taken off the plate. The Pirates are this tough if they go against the Eastern and Western Division. Never mind their own. They're 58-21. Pitch to Turner outside. I mean, that's remarkable. Go all the way back to 1969. So they are tough. And they got a tough break in losing Gong, the shortstop. 2 balls and 2 strikes, the count now to Justin Turner. The Dodgers doing exactly what they did last year, playing very well in September, and they hope in October. Dodgers since last year 28-12. Ground ball backhanded at third by Aramis Ramirez to throw him out. So Turner taps out. 2 down in the third, and Adrian Gonzalez coming up.
Adrian Gonzalez.
The Pirates, of course, are very optimistic. This is game 1 of 7 straight inside the Western Division. And as we said, when you're 21-5 and you're going to play 7 straight, you figure you'll clean up. Well, we'll see. 2 down, Gonzalez grounded out. He takes high, ball 1. They load up the right side. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. Breaking ball hit to the middleman is out in right field. That would be Walker, who throws him out. So the Dodgers go very quietly in the third inning, and at the end of 3, Dodgers 2, Pirates nothing. September 18, 2006, the Dodgers staged an incredible ninth-inning comeback against the Padres, tying the game after connecting on an improbable 4 consecutive home runs for just the 4th time in Major League history. The Dodgers would win the game in the 10th on a walk-off home run by Nomar Garciaparra. Dodgers take a 2-0 lead into the 4th inning. Jeff Locke and Zach Greinke. Aramis Ramirez followed by Neil Walker and then Pedro Alvarez. Ramirez walked in the 1st inning. From Santo Domingo, still lives there. 6'1", 215-pounder. And fouled away. 0-1. The years are flying by now. All of a sudden you realize that Aramis Ramirez was signed by the Pirates in 1994. He's 37 years old now. First came up to the Pirates in 98. 0-2. He's had some big years. He had as many as 38 home runs, had as many as 119 runs batted in when he was with the Cubs. Well, he's put a lot of big numbers. Has 16 home runs, 70 runs batted in. Just off the plate. 1-2. For Aramis, his father was a doctor, and they asked him if you weren't a ball player, what would you do? And he said, I'd probably have been a doctor like my dad. The 1-2 pitch, poke foul, had to protect the outside part of the plate. In all those big years, and remember he came up in 1998, spent a little bit of time in the minor leagues, but not that much. He has 1,412 career RBIs. Dodgers lead 2-0 in the 4th, and Greinke's ready. Fastball pull foul right into the Dodger dugout. 1-2 the count. Aramis grew up with a basketball in his hands. He wanted to be Michael Jordan, not the next Mike Schmidt. He was 13 years old, and it was a neighbor who said, forget basketball, you're going to make it as a baseball player. He fouled it away. So Aramis is still there. 1-2. He was such a good-looking kid player. They wanted to sign him when he was 15. His dad was wise, would not allow it. That you can find when you finish high school, maybe. So he finished, maybe came to be, and when he was 19 years 11 months, he was called up to the big leagues. 1-2. He goes after a pitch away. It's a fly ball to right. Heisey is there. So Greinke now has retired 5 in a row since Chris Stewart's single up the middle. And the batter, Neil Walker, they grounded out in the 1st inning. Walker has been pretty much the heart and soul of the Pirate infield. He had an uncle who played in the big leagues with the Montreal Expos for a little while. And there's a towering drive to dead center. Going back is Peterson. Forget about it. Over the center field wall. That is the 3rd home run that Neil Walker has hit against Zach Greinke. It is also his 14th home run this year.
Number 24, Pedro Alvarez.
So the Pirates, who have hit 128 home runs, watching Walker drive it out. Was it no surprise Walker can hit him out anywhere, anytime. And he gets his team on the board. So it's 2-1 in favor of the Dodgers. Little breaking ball in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Neil Walker's father pitched in the major leagues, so he's got a lot of good genes. In fact, his dad, I think, played a little bit with Roberto Clemente. So Neil Walker, who hit 16 home runs 2 years ago, hits his 14th. Greinke has now allowed 13 home runs this year. And here's Alvarez, who lined out to right. 1-2. Alvarez, 6'3", 235-pounder. In the dirt. Although he was born in Santo Domingo, he was raised in the Bronx. And as a kid in the Bronx playing for Horace Mann High School, he was right up there in the rumors about being the best hitter to come out of New York since Manny Ramirez. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Ball 3. Waiting on deck patiently, Jody Mercer, the shortstop. 3-2 the count to Alvarez. Little ground ball to Utley, playing out on the grass. And that'll be the second out. You know, Thursday on an all-new Backstage Dodgers, you'll go behind the scenes. Hyun-Jin Ryu rehabbed from season-ending shoulder surgery. Boy, we sure miss him. Plus, the Dodgers give a special honor to longtime coach John Shoemaker. So don't miss Backstage Dodgers Thursday at 7 on Sportsnet LA. So Alvarez grounds out after the home run by Neil Walker. And here's Jordy Mercer. Hit the ball hard but grounded out to Utley. 0 for 1. For Neil Walker, well, he has hit 4 home runs against Bronson Arroyo, and then he's hit 3 against Greinke, Homer Bailey, Ian Kennedy, and Lance Lynn. 1 ball and no strikes. Two runs, 3 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for the Bucks. Check swing, but it's going to be a strike. And the count 2-1 to Jordy Mercer. Justin Ruggiano, his base hit in the first inning set up a run. His base hit in the second inning knocked in a run. So he's the story. Peterson scored a run after getting a base hit to left field. And the next pitch on the inside corner, and the count 2-2. Greinke's pitch count 65 pitches. Not bad. First inning he had to make 21. Ground ball up the middle, but Seager's on it. Plenty of time, and gets his man. For the Bucks, 1 run, 1 hit, 1 swing of the bat by Neil Walker. And at the end of 3.5 innings, Dodgers 2, Pirates 1. 2015 Jeep Cherokee. With an EPA estimated 31 highway MPG, it's the perfect choice. Visit Jeep.com today. Tough ball game, 2-1 Dodgers, bottom of the fourth inning. Jeff Locke battling Zach Greinke. It figured to be a tough ball game, and it figures to be a wonderful series. I mean, it is push against shove. Neil Walker hit the first pitch for a home run. By the way, he's hitting .371 with 5 home runs on the first pitch. Meanwhile, A.J. Ellis coming up, followed by Corey Seager and then Chris Heisey. Starts with a fastball high, ball 1. 1-0 to A.J. Half a dozen home runs. 16 runs batted in. Pulled down the left field line, foul. 1-1. It happens so often in baseball. One man's misfortune is another one's great break. Yasmani Grandal, foul ball on the left shoulder. He went something like 0 for 36 without a hit. That meant that A.J. Ellis got some playing time, and boy, has he used it properly. Of course, again, it's such a tough game, especially at this level. I mean, if you don't play, you just can't play. 2-2. And now Grandal sits, the victim of the game, and Ellis catches. 2 balls, 2 strikes. 3-2. Locke hit a batter and walked Ellis last time up. Into the hole, base hit to left field. I think he hit that ball more on the handle. You heard kind of a ping rather than a good solid sound. And I'm looking at Chris Stewart. He looks a little frustrated. It sounded more like an aluminum bat. So A.J. gets a base hit. I think that frustrated Stewart. I'm sure his body language told you that Locke made a good pitch. So Ellis at first, and the batter Corey Seager hit back to the box in the first inning. And he drives one to right. Back goes Polanco. She's gone. Corey Seager hits his second home run in his young career, his first here at Dodger Stadium. Seager now has 10 runs batted in, and the Dodgers have a 4-1 lead. For Locke, that's the 15th home run that he's allowed. Comfortable lead for the Dodgers behind Greinke, and the pitch to Heisey misses, ball 1. For the Corey Seager Marching and Chowder Society, fastball right out over the plate, and Corey knew exactly what to do with it. Polanco had to give up and watch, and the Dodgers now leading 4-1. 4 runs and 5 hits. His first here. He'll hit a bunch before he's finished. I noticed his brother and Jared Weaver had a few words. In fact, I believe Weaver hit Seager. Kyle Seager. 3-0 the count to Chris Heisey. Left side of the infield loaded up. And the 3-0 pitch in there. Four runs, 5 hits for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits for the Pirates. Pitches away, so Heisey draws the walk. Hurdle had his left-handers lined up for the Dodgers. Dodgers against left-hand starters at home are 11-7. They're break even on the road. Ray Searage, who at one time pitched for the Dodgers. Searage pitched here 1989 and 1990. He might be reminding Jeff Locke about that first pitch. Seager hits the first pitch for his home run. Neil Walker hit the first pitch from Greinke for a home run. So Ray now turns and heads back to the dugout. 4-1, favor of the Dodgers, and the batter Jock Peterson. Jock singled to left field and came around to score a run. Dodgers trying to win their 50th game at home. The last time they won 50 at home back in 2009. Fastball strike. And of course this is game 1. They have 2 more plus 4 with the Diamondbacks for 6 and 3 more with San Diego for 9. As McGuire talks to Justin Ruggiano, Clayton Kershaw getting ready for tomorrow night. 0-1. Heisey does not have a stolen base. Peterson, the number 8 hitter, and then Greinke, who's a pretty good hitting pitcher. 0-1 to Jock. Oh, and 2. Corey Seager in hitting the home run. He now has 21 hits. Yasiel Puig in his first 13 games had 23. Lee Lacy back in the 70s had 20. Steve Sachs had 16 in his first 13. 0-2 the count to Jock Peterson. 4-1 Dodgers in the 4th. 1-2. That home run by Seager for the Dodgers, home run number 173 as he stands alongside Chase Utley. 1-2. And they've got him picked off. Now in a rundown, high throw, and eventually the catcher faking, and finally the tag. Well, that took a while. Walker finally gets the put out. So Peterson up there, 1 out. There's a good throw by Locke. Heisey does a pretty good job being in the rundown. The Bucks making too many throws, but eventually they get him. Heisey without a stolen base is still looking for it as Justin Turner comes over to talk to him. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Jock Peterson. Fastball low. 2-2. Jock 25 home runs, 52 runs batted in, hitting .219 with Zach Greinke on deck. Little pop foul. That will drop untouched except in the Dodger dugout. Two balls and 2 strikes. Pirates began the day 5 games behind St. Louis. St. Louis lost to the Cubs. Though the Cubs for the moment are a game and a half behind Pittsburgh. Foul ball. If the Dodgers hold on to the lead, the Cubs then would be 1 back in the wild card to find out home field advantage. Do you think the Cubs have 1 or 2 fans hoping for another shot of the postseason? Oh boy. Slow breaking ball. Peterson way out in front of it. So thanks to the pickoff and the strikeout, 2 down in the 4th inning, and Zach Greinke coming up. Two strikeouts for Jeff Locke. One thing that has certainly helped Pittsburgh has been their bullpen. So even if Locke has to come out, ball game is still in good hands. Whoa, base hit to right. Walker was going the other way. Wow. We can show you again. Neil Walker broke to his right on a ball that was hit to his left. And Greinke's grinning out as if say thank you very much. Watch him. He's going that way. Oh, must have lost the ball. So Greinke gets a gift base hit. Dodgers now have a half a dozen hits against Locke. So that brings up Justin Ruggiano. Boy, you talk about the Dodgers coming up with a great acquisition. It's Ruggiano. Ball 1. As a Dodger, he's hitting .375. 3 home runs, 11 RBIs in 11 games. Hitting .333 against left-handers. Right-handers, okay, it's another story. 154. Ball 2. 2-0 to Justin. Ruggiano has been around. It's not like some kid who just was signed. He is indeed a veteran player. But boy, he has sure found a home here. Ruggiano from Austin, Texas, takes a strike. He was originally signed by the Dodgers way back in 2004. He went to school at Texas A&M. But when he got to the big leagues, it was with the Rays and then the Marlins and then the Cubs and then the Mariners and finally the club that originally signed him, the Los Angeles Dodgers. He hit as many as 18 home runs for the Marlins back in 2013. Greinke at first. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Fastball lifted. I mean lifted. It's going to slice off foul. And it's going to be caught one-handed by Gregory Polanco. But Corey Seager makes the lights even brighter at Dodger Stadium. Fastball just above the knees, right out of the heart of the plate, and he buries it in the pavilion. Dodgers pick up 2, and at the end of 4, lead 4-1. will receive a Dodger sleeve blanket presented by SoCal Honda dealers that looks, well, remarkably like the team's road uniform. For tickets, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. Fifth inning, Corey Seager lights one up with a home run to right field with a man aboard. Dodgers lead 4-1, trying to pick their first win of the year against Pittsburgh. Chris Stewart, then Jeff Locke, the pitcher, and Gregory Polanco in that order against Greinke. Greinke gave up a double to McCutchen in the first inning, a single to Stewart in the second inning, and a home run to Neil Walker in the fourth. But with all of that, he's leading 4-1. First ball and lifted to shallow left center. Seager is out there calling and makes the catch. So one away here in the fifth. Jeff Locke, the pitcher, coming up, grounded out in the second inning.
Number 49, Jeff Locke.
And a strike. Right side of the Dodger infield, playing pretty deep for a pitcher. The outfield is shaded way around the left. 1 ball and 1 strike. Ruggiano pretty shallow in left field. Locke came into the game hitting less than 100. And a slow roller to Utley. So 2 down here in the fifth inning. That's 6 assists by Chase Utley, and we're only in the fifth inning. So Greinke has kept him busy, and now the big right fielder Gregory Polanco coming up. Polanco popped to short, fly to center, 0 for 2. Starts him fastball at the knees, 0-1. Clayton Kershaw and Nelson Liriano. That'll be tomorrow night. Mike Bolsinger and Jarrett Cole on Sunday. Liriano has won 10 and lost 7. One ball, 1 strike. Kershaw with an earned run average of 2.1 will be trying for his 15th win. Foul back. One and 2 to Gregory Polanco. Dodgers trying to beat Pittsburgh for the first time, having been swept when they went to Pennsylvania, but then again that was way back in May. 1 and 2. Sinker swung on and missed, picked out of the dirt, and that'll do it for Polanco and for the Bucks. And at the end of 4.5 innings, Greinke walks off leading 4-1. To you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. The time is short, but the savings are big at Toyota's Clearance Countdown going on now. Dodgers leading 4-1. They scored a run in the first inning, so they got the jump on the Bucks and have led ever since. In fact, they were leading 2-0 when Neil Walker homered, and then Seager homers with a man aboard, and the Dodgers lead 4-1. Chase Utley hit by a pitch and popped up, hitting .218. Strike. Ground ball to his opposite number, Neil Walker. Walker saw that correctly this time. One away in the fifth inning. Justin Turner struck out in the first inning, lost a hit and a nice play by Ramirez in the third inning. 4 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. 1 run, 3 hits, 1 error for the Bucks. The error was a throwing error by Chris Stewart that gave the Dodgers a run in the first inning. Little breaking ball, no swing. One 0 pitch on the way. Little low, ball 2. And line drive. Wow, that almost hit Lott. There is a terrible moment as we see that line drive go by. In the Cardinal game today, Jimmy Nelson was pitching against the Cardinals, and Pham hit a line drive that struck Nelson on the side of the head, and he went down as if he were shot. They said the comeback, the flight of the ball was 105 miles an hour, and unbelievably Nelson got up and walked off on his own power. It was scary. So here's Gonzalez. Right side is loaded up. Turner with the base hit. Dodgers 4 runs, 7 hits. He had that 2-run home run by Corey Seager to change the ball game completely from a tough 2-1 game to a somewhat comfortable 4-1. No balls, 1 strike. Well, Heisey was picked off. Check me, it was yeah, Heisey was picked off back in the 4th inning. 0-1. Fastball hit the other way. Coming up for it to make the catch is Marte, and Starlin gets it back in. So a line drive out. Good play by Marte, and with 2 down, it'll be A.J. Ellis. When the Pirates come up in the 6th inning, they'll have Marte, McCutchen, and Ramirez. And if anybody gets on, the second baseman, Walker. So the heart of the offense just around the corner. Ellis walked, single to left, rode home on Seager's home run. Fastball in there. Oh, and 2. Locke pitched here once before, back in 2013. He actually came up to the Pirates in 2011, and in 2013 he was a 10-game winner. Curveball low, 1-2. How good was he in high school? Well, all he did was throw 2 no-hitters as a sophomore. One of them was a perfect game. As a junior, he had a 5-inning no-hitter in which all the outs were strikeouts. So he was too big for the room back there in New Hampshire. Up, another pickoff, the throw down, another tag, and another Dodger goes down. So the Dodgers trying to run. They did pull off the double steal in the first inning. Now they've had 2 men nailed. And at the end of 5, 4-1 Dodgers. Really memorable game. Trailing San Diego in the bottom of the 9th inning, Jeff Kent hit a home run. Then J.D. Drew hit a home run. Then Russell Martin hit a home run. And then Marlon Anderson hit a home run. 4 home runs in the bottom of the 9th to tie the game. In the 10th inning, Nomar Garciaparra hits a home run with a man aboard, and the Dodgers win it 11-10, going to first place. And that had to be one burned in the memory of anyone who was here that great night. And with that, let's go back to this one. Greinke ready to go to work in the 6th inning. Dodgers leading 4-1. Zach's allowed 1 run, 3 hits. The run, a home run by Neil Walker, a bunt. But coming down to get it and throwing out Marte, and just like that, 1 out. So Starlin Marte really tied up. The left fielder topped the ball out in front of the plate 4 feet, rounded to short, and now bunts back. So here's McCutchen. Andrew McCutchen. How good is he? Well, people in Pittsburgh, not trying to put any pressure on him, but his name will forever be linked with Roberto Clemente. He's that good. Ball 1. With runners in scoring position and 2 out, the toughest situation for a hitter. McCutchen's hitting .386. They load up the left side. With 150 career home runs and 150 career stolen bases, all within the first 7 years of his career. He has joined quite a group to have done that. Alfonso Soriano, Matt Kemp, Eric Davis, Darryl Strawberry, Bobby Bonds, Barry Bonds, and Willie Mays. That's a strike. 2-2. He is not only a terrific player, those who know him tell him he's extremely charitably inclined. He was the Pirate MVP back in 2013. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Out of Fort Meade, Florida. He awoke to the world with the family living in a trailer, but things have improved dramatically ever since. He's not a big man. He's about 5'10", maybe 185. He'll be 29 in October. And that's strike 3. So Greinke takes care of McCutchen, and with 2 down in the 6th inning, the batter will be Aramis Ramirez. Interestingly enough, the first strikeout for Zach Greinke is when he got Polanco in the 5th inning. That's only his 2nd strikeout. Here is Ramirez, walked and flied to right. Slow curveball for a strike. Whoa, 68 miles an hour. Greinke's retired 6 in a row since the home run by Walker, who was on deck. Fastball fouled away. So from 69 miles an hour, he comes back at 94. And understandably, Ramirez a little late trying to get around on it. Two out, 6th inning, 4-1 Dodgers. High fly ball that's playable. Peterson is there. So a quick 1-2-3 inning. 7 in a row retired since the home run. Greinke has made 84 pitches through 6 and walks off leading 4-1.
Third, the first 40,000 in attendance will receive a Vince Scully bobblehead presented by Mercedes-Benz Dealers of Southern California. For tickets, go to Dodgers.com/promotions.
4-1 favor of the Dodgers. We go to the bottom of the 6th inning. It'll be Ellis, Seager, and Heisey. Pirates coming into this game, as we've mentioned a couple of times, have done exceptional well against the Western Division teams. They won 6 out of 7 from the Giants, 5 of 6 from Arizona, 5 of 7 from San Diego, 3 straight from the Dodgers back in May, and they won 2 out of 3 from Colorado. So they have dominated the Western Division, but the Dodgers behind Greinke have them locked down 4-1, bottom of the 6th. Ellis walked and singled. He was aboard when Seager on deck hit 1 out. 0-2. For Jeff Locke, he made 10 pitches in the 5th inning to get up to 80 pitches. Now he's up to 82. No balls, 2 strikes. One and two. Fastball just missed. 2-2. Pirates made a throwing error for a run in the 1st inning. Their 114th error. That would be most in the major leagues. They've made 16 errors in their last 12 games, yet won 6. So Ellis takes a seat, 1 away. Corey Seager had hit back to the box in the 1st inning, but not this time. He hit one into the pavilion, a 2-run home run to give the Dodgers a 4-1 lead. His 2nd home run in the big leagues, and the 1st one he's hit here. Corey hitting .429. He has 21 hits, including 2 home runs, 47 at bats. He has 6 doubles and 2 home runs. 1 ball and 1 strike. When the Bucks come up in the 7th, they'll have Neil Walker and then Alvarez and Mercer. Chopper wide of first in the hole. Walker's over there. 2 down. One thing, when they load up right side of the infield with a left-hand hitter, the biggest play for the first baseman is to remember there's 3 men on that side. Alvarez took 1 step as if to go after the ball and then said, no, Walker's in the neighborhood. So here's Heisey, popped up, walked, and was down in a rundown, picked off in the 4th inning. One ball and no strikes. Dodgers have had 3 men erased running on the base paths tonight. Ruggiano, who was in that extensive rundown after he got a base hit to drive in a run. Heisey, who was picked off in the 4th inning. And Turner, who was nailed in the 5th. And for the Dodgers, thinking about running, because in the 1st inning they pulled off a double steal against Locke and scored their 1st run when the catcher Chris Stewart threw it into left field. 2-1 the count. Got him. So Heisey takes a strike to balance it up 2-2. Neil Walker homered in the 4th inning. You have to get down to Stewart to get another hit. And that will take care of good change. Heisey out in front of it. Locke strikes out 2 in the inning. However, at the end of 6, Dodgers 4, Pirates 1. on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Choose Nissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BLUECREW for free entry. Dodgers take a 4-1 lead into the seventh inning. Neil Walker, Pedro Alvarez, Jordy Mercer. Walker providing the run when he homered in the fourth inning. Greinke has allowed 13 home runs this year. First pitch lifted to left field. Ruggiano is there. So one pitch and one away in the seventh inning. So now all of a sudden Greinke is on a bit of a roll.
First baseman Pedro Alvarez.
9 in a row retired. He's not overpowering people. He has only struck out 2. Doesn't make any difference. He's also only made 85 pitches. Meanwhile, Alex Wood, who made such a terrific shot the other night. Wow. Absolutely magnificent for 8. That's a strike to Alvarez. We were looking up some of the winningest pitchers by a Dodger. You go back to 1951, which is a year, ironically, they lost. That was to the Giants, the Bobby Thompson home run. But that year, Preacher Rowe, Elwin Preacher Rowe from Ash Flats, Arkansas. Then eventually moved to Hardy, Arkansas. He was memorable. But Preacher was 22-3 that year. Well, that'll take care of Alvarez. Third strikeout for Greinke. 2 down in the seventh. And the batter will be Jordy Mercer. 2 left with the Bucks. Remember, tomorrow a 6:10 game. Then the 1 o'clock game on Sunday. And then 4 with Paul Goldschmidt and Arizona. And mentioning Paul Goldschmidt, we can tell you that Goldschmidt and Wellington Castillo had RBIs. And the Diamondbacks are leading the Giants 2-0 in the 6th inning behind Ruby De La Rosa. Breaking ball for a strike, 0-1. What could happen tonight, Dodgers win, Giants lose, the magic number would be 8. Right. And a fly ball. Peterson is there. So that was certainly a nice, easy inning for Zach Greinke. Took a total of 6 pitches to retire the side. The last 3 innings, he made 8 pitches, 10 pitches, 6 pitches. 90 for the night. Walks off leading 4-1. Zack Greinke would appear to be in control of the game. He's retired the last 11 in a row. The last 3 innings, he made a total of 24 pitches in the 3 innings. So the Dodgers lead 4-1, bottom of the 7th, and ball 1 to Jock Peterson. Right side loaded up. Ramirez all alone on the other side. And a fly ball to right. Coming up is Polanco. 1 away. Locke due to bat second when the Pirates bat in the 8th inning. So this is probably his last inning. Meanwhile, Zack Greinke checking in with 1 out. Locke has retired the last 5 in a row. Greinke sacrificed that set up a run and singled. That's when Walker went the wrong way on the ground ball. And he drives it to center. Starting in is McCutchen. It's over his head. And Greinke is on his way into second base with a double. Greinke hit it hard, and McCutchen, a very good outfielder, misjudged it. Take another look. Greinke got a fastball, hit it hard. McCutchen took a step in, tried to correct, couldn't do it. Now he stepped in, now he's turned to get back, but it's over his head. So a 1-out double for Zack Greinke. And the batter Ruggiano. So Greinke 2 for 3. Archimedes Caminero begins to warm up. That's right. There he is. Archimedes Caminero. Clint Hurdle is on his way out to the mound. Meanwhile, for Zack Greinke, with 2 hits tonight, 2 for 2, his average has run up 20 points. So Greinke has already pitched a splendid 7. That'll be all for Jeff Locke. Hurdle's going to the bullpen. We'll be right back. True HD quality on MLB.TV Premium. You can watch every outer game live on more than 400 supported devices. You'll get real-time highlights, live look-ins, and so much more. So visit MLB.TV today. Archimedes Caminero from the Santo Domingo area of the Dominican Republic. Original signed by the Marlins in 2005 and had to wait a while. Took him 9 years in the minor leagues. 4 years he spent in the Dominican Summer League. And eventually 9 years later, here he is. He's 6'4", a good 245, 28 years old. And Andre Ethier will be the hitter as Jeff Locke is now back in the Pirate dugout. And ball one to Andre. So Ethier getting a chance against a right-hander, hitting .294, looking for number 300 in his career for doubles. 13 home runs, 44 runs batted in. 2-0 the count. You hear that name. Pitch foul back. Archimedes Caminero. He's named after two statisticians, mathematicians, I guess you should say, Archimedes and Euclid. When they asked him, well, where'd that come from? He said, my father saw the names in an algebra book and he liked them. He's the youngest of 8 children. Father works in construction. Back in the Dominican, they don't go to the trouble of calling him Archimedes. They call him Kiko. And then a lot of other players just shorten his last name and call him Cammy. But he likes Archimedes. Euclid is the father of geometry. Didn't we all love that? And Archimedes devised a formula determines the volume of an irregular shaped object using water displacement. Yeah, I didn't do too well in that either. Though Ethier draws the walk, and the Dodgers now with 1 out have runners at first and second, and here's Chase Utley. Utley was hit by a pitch, popped to short, grounded out, 0 for 2. From the way Don Mattingly talked, we might very well see Howie Kendrick get back into action tomorrow. Maybe not every day for a while, but he's just about ready. By the way, the home run tonight by Corey Seager turns out to be an important one. The Dodger rookies now have a club record 47 home runs by rookies. The previous record held our first year out here in 1958, 2 years later in 1960, but it's Seager who puts him over 47 rookie home runs. 1 ball, 1 strike. Utley with Turner on deck. Ground ball wide at first. Nice pick by Alvarez. So they'll get the force play. That takes care of Ethier. Runners at first and third, and Justin Turner coming up.
Baseman number 10, Justin Turner.
Two out, 7th inning. 4-1 Dodgers. Chris Stewart, the catcher. Then there'll be a pinch hitter for Archimedes. And then Gregory Polanco. Ethier, Seager, Van Slyke having some fun. I'm sure they're kidding Ethier. You sit around all night. They finally send you up to pinch hit. You get a walk, and you're immediately forced, and you're right back in the dugout. And they're letting them talk about how easy things are. Mike Bolsinger sitting quietly. Van Slyke is close to playing. He's had a cyst on his hand. He might be ready to hold a bat starting tomorrow. 1 ball and 1 strike to Justin Turner. 2-1. Thinking about a pinch hitter for Camaneros. Could be Travis Ishikawa, the former Giant, who's now with the Pirates. Michael Morse, another former Giant, just to mention a couple. 2-1. There's Morse. Ball 3. That's as hard as Caminero has thrown tonight, 97 miles an hour. His fastball, like so many of these pitchers, has actually been capped at 101. His slider is 86. He's added a cutter that's up to 94, and for good measure, a splitter. First and third, 2 out, 3-1 to Turner. 3-2. Now that's 98. Turner sees an awful lot of fastballs. He's hitting .541 against fastball. And he gets fastballs about 67% of the time. Waiting on deck, Adrian Gonzalez. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Three and 2 with 2 down, so Utley will be going from first. Greinke down the line from third. Fastball fouled away. Wow, 100 miles an hour. It took him a little while to warm up. Started at 97 and went to 98. Skipped 99. So you say, well, why did they throw so many fastballs to Turner? Tell you one reason, there aren't a lot of good curveball pitchers in the game anyway. And that's low, ball 4. So the bases are loaded. Adrian Gonzalez coming up. Turner at first, Utley at second, Greinke at third. And another meeting for Ray Searage. We mentioned earlier Ray pitched here for the Dodgers 1989 and 1990. The Chicago Cubs beat the Cardinals today. Should Pittsburgh lose, the Cubs would be 1 game behind them as they fight it out for home field advantage in a wild card game. So these are extremely important games for Pittsburgh, especially since the Cubs already won. Meanwhile, the Dodgers are hoping that Arizona can shut down the Giants. Dodgers have a shot of reducing the margin number to 8. They have Greinke at third, Utley at second, Turner at first, and here's Adrian. He has 4 grand slams in his career. Neil Walker way out in right field. Line drive, base hit. He's found a hole. Here comes the run. Greinke scores. Utley scores on a double by Gonzalez. Turner stops at third, and the Dodgers have broken it wide open, leading 6-1. So everybody ganged up on the right side. Adrian still found the hole. Picks up 2 ribbies. The best laid plans of mice and men explode. Sinking fastball around the knees. And somehow right there, no man's land. And by the time Polanco picks it up, 2 runs are in. Long double for Adrian. And the Dodgers now leading 6-1 on 9 hits. 32 doubles. McCutchen, the center fielder, has 33 doubles and then doubled in the first inning, though Andrew has 34. Second and third, 2 out, 2 in, 6-1 Dodgers. Bottom of the 7th. Fastball missed. A Dodger victory tonight would give them their 50th victory at home. They haven't been that successful since back in 2009. A little more good news for Mattingly. They're in the 7th inning at AT&T Park, and the D-backs leading the Giants 2-0. 2-0. 2-1. Ellis walked, singled, struck out. His base hit was followed by Corey Seager's home run. In the Dodger bullpen, Chris Hatcher will be asked to pitch the 8th. Good fastball at 99. There's Hatcher. He's been a closer for a couple of days when Jansen needed a little rest. Greinke, meanwhile, has gone 7. Foul back. Wow. 101. Two and 2. And a shot off his foot, deflected to short. The throw to first is in time. A.J. Ellis robbed of a base hit and a run batted in as the ball goes off Archimedes' foot, goes over to shortstop where Mercer picks it up, and it's a 1-6-3 play. So he lost at least 1 run on that, and it's 6-1 Dodgers. In the show table tonight, Corey Seager, the youngster at short, hits a 2-run home run. The veteran Adrian Gonzalez comes up with a clutch double, and Zach Greinke, trying to win his 18th, is going to go out there and pitch the 8th inning. The Dodgers switch the outfield. Tress Heisey, he started in right. He'll move over to left because Andre Ethier batted for Justin Ruggiano. And Greinke getting ready to pitch to Stewart, then a pinch hitter, and then Polanco. Greinke was kind of in and out the first couple of innings. Gave up a home run to Neil Walker, a double to McCutchen. But then after the home run, he has really settled down. He retired 11 in a row. During the stretch, he has struck out 3. Only made 90 pitches. And first pitch, a bullet slightly into left center. Peterson has to go back to get it. And holding with the single is Stewart. So one of the candidates we figured would be a pinch hitter is coming up, and that'll be Michael Morse. So Michael Morse, right-hand batter. Six to 1 favor of the Dodgers. Morse was originally drafted by the White Sox. That's way back, year 2000. Michael is from Florida. He's big, very strong, 6'5" and 230. Hit as many as 31 home runs for the Washington Nationals back in 2011. Fouled away, 1-1. In the Dodger bullpen, Luis Avilan, the left-hander, joins Chris Hatcher. Six to 1 Dodgers. Morse was born in Florida. Family moved to Jamaica when he was about 2. His mom is Jamaican. And ball 2, 2-1. Mike never came close to the 31 home runs that he hit for Washington. That's a strike. With the Giants, last year he had 16 home runs and 61 runs batted in. Two balls, two strikes. And ball 3. Greinke walked Ramirez in the first inning. That's the only walk he's given up tonight. Three and two, Stewart at first, nobody out, and that's high. So that means you have runners at first and second and nobody out. Mattingly a little restless now in the dugout. First time tonight, well, certainly since the first inning. The first time that Greinke has allowed 2 men on base, but he's doing it with nobody out. He had 2 men on base with 2 out in the first inning. Then he got a lot of magic, 11 in a row, and he gives up a single to Stewart and a walk to Michael Morse. You have Polanco due up. Greinke going out, getting a standing ovation as he's in position to have his record 18-3. We'll be right back. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. FlexAlert.org. Luis Avilan called in to go up against a left-hand hitter, the leadoff man Gregory Polanco. The only left-handed bats in the lineup, Polanco. Then you go all the way down to Neil Walker, who's a switch hitter, and Pedro Alvarez, who hits after him. So they're right-hand hitters, Marte, McCutchen, and Ramirez. So you wonder how long Avilan will be in there, perhaps just for this hitter. First and second, nobody out. Eighth inning, 6-1 Dodgers, and the Pirates trying to get a move on. Big crowd, 49,529. 49,529. And here's Polanco. Popped up, fly to center, struck out. Greinke struck out 3, all in the last couple of innings. That's on the inside corner. Polanco didn't believe it. Stewart at second, Moore at first, nobody out. And a high foul ball out of play. Six to 1, favor of the Dodgers. They scored a run in the first, a run in the second. Seager hit a 2-run home run in the fourth, and Gonzalez doubled home 2 with the bases loaded in the seventh. Stewart at second base, Morse at first, nobody out. Fastball down and in. No swing. For Avilan, Polanco, who is 6'4", brings up a good strike zone and then helps the umpires by having the pants tucked in at the knee. Two and two. Yeah, that really helps. I always wondered why a hitter would lower the pants, but then again, from their angle, they're not trying to help anybody except themselves, trying to get a base hit. You're the plate umpire. You certainly have a good idea where the knee is. 2 and 2. Fastball. So Polanco strikes out. 1 out. Avilan does just what they want. Now they're going to take him out. They have Chris Hatcher, and that pitch inside, a little low. Polanco went after it. So Don Mattingly had Hatcher in the wings. Avilan gets his man. Luis will come out. Hatcher will come in, and we'll be back. photo of the game. Tweet your photo for a chance to be shown in an upcoming broadcast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Chris Hatcher is now called in to face Marte and McCutchen. And if anybody gets on, Ramirez, 3 right-hand batters. Neil Walker, remember, is a switch hitter. So Avilan was called in to face 1 batter. That was Polanco, and he got him. Marte has had a tough night. Topped the ball out in front of the plate. Grounded to short. Tried to bunt his way aboard. Greinke threw him out. Hitting .283 against right-handers. Though in some ways you think, well, numerically, you might as well have left Avilan in there. 5-run lead. Don Mattingly wants right-hander against right-hander. McCutchen on deck. And a roller up the middle for a base hit. So here comes Stewart to score. And the numbers hold up. Marte hits better against right-handers. And he singles in a run. That run is charged to Greinke.
Andrew McCutchen.
And the next batter is Andrew McCutchen. So that found a hole. Scoring easily is Chris Stewart, the catcher. Marte sent Michael Morse to second. Still 1 out. And now McCutchen. McCutchen doubled, grounded out, and struck out. And look at with runners in scoring position, hitting .387. Off the plate, ball 1. In the Dodger bullpen, J.P. Howell warming up. One ball and no strikes. And a strike. Looking at McCutchen, you realize the fact that the Pirates have had 25 batting champions, from people like Honus Wagner right up to Andrew McCutchen. And ball 2, 2-1. Who are some of the others? Well, the great Paul Waner, Roberto Clemente 4 times, Dave Parker, Mad Dog as they called him, Bill Madlock, Matty Alou, Dick Grote, Archie Vaughan. When Matty Alou won in 1966, that was Clemente's MVP year. The runner-up, his brother, Felipe Alou. 2-1. And popped up, foul ground, Ellis. Big out to get McCutchen in that spot. So McCutchen goes 1 for 4. 2 down here in the 8th inning. And it'll be Aramis Ramirez.
Third baseman, number 17, Aramis Ramirez.
Ramirez walked, flied to right, flied to center, 0 for 2. We're in the 8th. Dodgers lead 6-2. 2 on, 2 out. Ramirez 16 home runs, 70 runs batted in. Came over from Milwaukee. And ball 1. Michael Morse out there at second base. Marte at first. On deck is the switch hitting Neil Walker. Walker homered in the 4th inning. Ground ball to Gonzalez. He'll feed Hatcher coming over. And that'll be that. So the Bucks get a run, and at the end of 7.5, Greinke can relax for the moment. Dodgers lead 6-2. Lead 6 runs, 9 hits. They had a 2-run home run by Corey Seager, a bases loaded double by Gonzalez for net 2 more. Jeff Locke relieved by Camaneros, and now La Framboise. Bobby only in his 6th game. Left-hander getting ready. It'll be Corey Seager to start it off. And since he's leading off, we might just as well show you his home run. The unloaded fastball just above the knees out over the plate. And much to his delight, that fan caught it. And here we go. La Framboise is from Downey. He was claimed off waivers last year by Pittsburgh from San Diego. Robert Joseph La Framboise, pride of Downey, went to the University of New Mexico. Seager fouls it away. Corey tonight hit back to the box, hit the 2-run home run, and grounded to second. 6-2 Dodgers, bottom of the 8th. Sidearm stayed in there. 1 ball and 1 strike. La Framboise was drafted 3 times. First 2 times by the White Sox, then by the Diamondbacks, finally with the Mariners. He went to Warren High School in Downey, Rio Honda College in Whittier, and the University of New Mexico. Big curveball, 1 and 2. On the outside corner, strike 3. So down goes Seager, 1 away. Walker, Alvarez, and Mercer will be coming up in the 9th inning for Pittsburgh. And here is Heisey. Popped up, walked, picked off, struck out. Slider and fastballs, that's what you expect from La Framboise. There's ball 1. That missed away, ball 2. La Framboise, 6'4", 190. Working on Heisey. 2-0. Off speed, popped in the air, foul. Here comes Alvarez in front of the dugout. Can't make the play. Now, if he were just playing a regular first base, he'd probably have made that catch. But he's over to his right because they've loaded up the left side, and Pedro got that close and just watched it hit the ground. 2-1. Chopper down to third. Ramirez is on it. 2 down. Jock Peterson coming up. Single to left, struck out, fly to right.
Number 31, Jock Peterson.
I'm not sure if he's still in the game or not. Ruby De La Rosa pitched 5 2/3 shutout innings. They finally took him out. And just amazing, in his 2 starts here, La Rosa, no wins, 2 losses, an earned run average over 12. In his 2 starts at AT&T Park this year, 2-0, an ERA of 0. What the Parks have to do with it is always a mystery. But anyway, Ruby De La Rosa shut the Giants down into the 6th inning. Jock Peterson has single to left, struck out, fly to right. Out on deck, maybe to get a little taste of a game. Howie Kendrick. Curveball for a strike. There he is. Peterson with that picket fence on the right side, I'm sure would let her get a pitch that he could handle like in the 2nd inning when he singled sharply to left. 1-2. Diamondbacks still leading the Giants 2-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Two and two. So the Dodgers right now, visions of picking up 2 and cutting the so-called magic number to 8. Combination of a Dodger win here and a Giant loss up there. But it's the 8th inning up there, and the Giants have been playing very well. 8 of 11. And Jock Peterson goes down on strikes. So Bobby LaFramboise came in and struck out 2. And at the end of 8, 6-2 Dodgers. bullpen. First time I've seen it here at Dodger Stadium. I've been told they do it in Anaheim. A lot of the people in the ballpark, they turn on their cell phone light. And of course, having seen so many different things, I look at these twinkling lights and I immediately go back to 1959. I know it's a long time ago, but in 1959, that memorable night at the Coliseum, when Roy Campanelli in his wheelchair was wheeled out to the mound by Pee Wee Reese, 93,000 people lit matches, and it was like sitting inside a jewel box because the lights were dimmed almost completely out. Here, with the lights on, it's not quite as effective, but nevertheless, it was a nice thing to say. All right, here's Kenley Jansen. It'll be Neil Walker, Pedro Alvarez, and Jordy Mercer. Walker grounded to second, homered, and flied to left. Kenley trying to close up shop, give the Dodgers their first win against Pittsburgh. 1 ball and no strikes. Walker homered in the 4th inning, the 13th home run that Greinke has given up this year. And that's going to lift foul off third base, well back into the crowd. Greinke went 7+. Avilan came in to take care of the left-hand inning Polanco. Hatcher gave up a base hit but retired the side, and now here is Jansen. Neil Walker. I knew there was a story involving Neil Walker's dad, Tom. New Year's Eve, 1972. Neil's father, Tom, was a very close pal of Roberto Clemente. And Clemente was going to load up the plane and fly that mission. And so his father helped load up Clemente's plane. In fact, Tom wanted to go with Roberto. And Roberto said, no, it's New Year's Eve. You stay home with your family. So Tom Walker stayed home, and Clemente got on the airplane and flew to his death. So Walker comes up with a base hit. He's 2 for 4. Great effort by Seager. Here's Alvarez. Pedro Alvarez lined out to right, grounded to second, and then last time up struck out. 6 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 2 runs, 6 hits for the Pirates. 0-1. Guessing fastball. He was a little bit out in front. Eighth inning, Arizona leading the Giants 2-0. One of the interesting things, that was a Bumgarner game, and the Giants have 1 hit in that game. $49,529 sitting in tonight. If you can, hope you'll be with us tomorrow night. Clayton Kershaw, Nelson Liriano. Remember, that's a 6:10 game. Foul ball. The concluding game Sunday at 1 o'clock, Mike Bolsinger and Jarrett Cole. Travis Snyder, left-hand batter, comes out on deck. He would hit for Mercer. Another foul ball. Count stays 0-2. Little ground ball. Gonzalez will take it to the bag. On the play, Walker advances to second. And Travis Snyder now coming up.
Pinch hitting for the Pirates, number 23, Travis Snyder.
Snyder, left-hand batter, hitting .250. With them before, now he's come back. Travis Snyder is out of Kirkland, Washington. Went to Jackson High School, and the Blue Jays picked him as a #1 player back in 2006. He's left-handed all the way. 27 years old and even 6, and a very stocky 235 pounds. Foul back. There are a lot of people who thought that Travis Snyder would be the best hitter to come through the state of Washington since Grady Sizemore. He was signed to a contract by the Blue Jays, $1.7 million. Quite an athlete. When you look at him, you realize he had to be a top football running back and a linebacker, and he was. That dropped in for a strike, 0-2. He quit playing football his sophomore year. He broke his right ankle on the last play of spring practice. Signed with the Blue Jays, even though he had committed to go to school at Arizona State. 0-2. A little low, 1-2 the count. Jansen trying to put him away. They're in the 9th inning at AT&T Park. The Diamondbacks are leading the Giants 2-0. And a high foul ball down the line. Turner backhands it. Oh, a nice play. Travis Ishikawa will be coming up now with 2 out. Fine play. Turner has the feel for the area. He never took his eyes off the ball. So Travis Ishikawa, formerly with the Giants. Kerwin Danley, third base umpire, having a little fun with Turner. Ishikawa started the year with the Giants. Last year he was in 47 games with the world champions. Travis was picked by the Giants way back in 2002. And ball 1. Ishikawa 6'3", 225, 32 years old on the 24th of September. Two out in the 9th, 6-2 Dodgers. 6 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers. And a high fly ball. It's Peterson's. And that'll be that. So the Dodgers win it. That cuts the so-called magic number to 9. There's no way we can tell you whether it's going to go to 8 or not. But the Giants are losing 2-0. But that's 1 out in the top of the 9th inning up there. The player of the game, sure, Zach Greinke, another masterpiece, 7 innings. He allowed charged with 2 runs. His record is now 18-3, and he is 6-3 lifetime against Pittsburgh. Tomorrow night, Clayton Kershaw, Nelson Liriano. We'll see you then. Till then, from all of us to all of you, a very pleasant good evening, everybody.